I tried to do one of the coding challenges from codingchallenges.fyi, and it turns out to be indeed quite a challenge for me. So the challenge was to build your own WC tool. There are about 7 steps in total, and the WC tool is a command line program that allows you to get some information on the contents of a file, depending on the options that you pass to it. Those options can include getting the number of bytes, number of characters, or number of words. For step 0, I will be using C Sharp as my programming language and Visual Studio Community 2022 for my IDE. We also need to download and add to our project this text file that will serve as our test file. So if you go ahead and check this test.txt file, then just download this one and you'll be good to go for your step 1. So the goal of step 1 is to read the number or output the number of bytes in a file. So the expected output should be in this form. So yeah, if you run the command in the command line, it expects two parameters or arguments. First one would be the option, which is in this case -c, and then the file name. So the expected output for this uh, command is this one. So it outputs the number of bytes and then the file name. So let's head to our code. So for this one, step 1 is a bit easy since I only have to use the read all bytes method of the file class. So as you can see, we have an if statement here that reads the first argument, which is -c, and if it's -c, then we read all of the bytes of the file. So yeah, it returns the file length, and then we output it to our console as the file length and then the file name, right? So since I'm using Visual Studio, in order for me to pass the options to the program, I need it to set somewhere. All right, so to do that in Visual Studio, I need to go to debug, and then in our case WC tool debug properties, since our project is named WC tool. Okay, let's open that one, and then under the command line arguments, I don't know if you can see this one. So yeah, let's try magnifying this one. So under the command line arguments, we can place here the arguments separated by spaces, or yeah, broken into multiple lines also. So in our case, we will pass the option -c space and then the file name, which in our case is the test.txt. All right, so let's close this one up and then try to run this one. So if you run this one, this would be the equivalent of running this in the command line in this form, right? With like this. Okay, so if you run this one, let's just wait shortly for this to compile, and then yeah, we should hopefully be able to get the expected output for this one. All right, so as you can see, we have 342190 space test.txt, which means that we have done it correctly. We have outputted the same output as is required for step 1. So the goal of step 1 is uh, satisfied. All right, moving on to step 2. So the goal of step 2 is to read or output the number of lines in a file, right? So again, following what we've done on step 1, again, you pass two options or two arguments, the -l and then the file name, right? So with step 2, it's a bit easier also since we have already an existing method for that, which is conveniently named read all lines of the file class. So here we have added a new line or section, which is an else if, indicating or comparing against the -l option. And then from there, we just read or use the read all lines method that would return the number of lines of the file and then output it into our console with the length of the resulting lines, and then the name of the file. All right. So again, to run this correctly, we again need to change the command line arguments here. So you just change it from -c to -l, and then let's see if we have correctly done this one. So now we have the result or the output of the program 7145 test.txt. So if you come back here, so we have matched the final output of step 2. Okay, on to step 3. So the goal of step 3 is to count the number of words. So what is considered a word? So looking at this documentation, I'll put this link on the description. So a word is defined as a string of characters delimited by spaces, tabs, or new line characters. And so with this in mind, let's go back to our code. Here, let's focus here. So now again, we capture the first parameter and then see if it's the option -w, and then we do count the number of words. So in this case, I tried reading all of the contents of the file using the read all text contents. And then after that, we split the strings into several uh, delimiting characters, all right? So indicating from the definition, we have carriage return, new line, tab, and then this empty space, okay? And so with this split method also, I've also added this option of remove empty entries, since this would return an array of strings and possibly it could return an element that has nothing in it, all right, or just uh, an empty element, all right. And so with that, uh, we should be able to determine the number of words from the text or the contents of the text. And since the split method returns a array of strings, the already splitted strings, then we can just get the length of it so that we can display the number of words, and again we append the file name. All right, so if we run this one, and hopefully we'd match the expected output. So now we have this 58164 space test.txt output, and upon checking, let's go back here, and then yes, we do match the expected result, and so we have satisfied step 3. Moving on to step 4. So with step 4, the goal is to have uh, to the program would have to receive an option of -m that would output the number of characters in a file. And if the current locale does not support multi-byte characters, this will match the -c option, which would be if m, then it would be equivalent to reading the number of bytes. I'm not quite really good at this multi-byte character stuff. Let me know what these things are. But anyways, my solution to this one is uh, here. Let's focus back on our code, and then in this else if section here, -m. And so since we're just trying to count the number of characters, I'd straight up just use the read all text, and then yeah, return the length of it. All right, and so basically this would result into, if we run this one, we have the 339291 number here, count, and then but somehow the expected result here, I'm off by 1, all right, since it's expected that we have the 339292, but mine is off by 1. It's only 339291. I'm not sure what's happening or going on here, but I'm close. I think I'm close, but I'm not just sure Why though, if it's off by 1? So let me know why is this. Just to take note that I'm running on a Windows environment, all right? On a Windows machine, specifically Windows 11. Okay, so I don't know if I've satisfied this one, but yeah, this is what I've got for step 4. Moving on to step 5. So with step 5, the goal is to support a default option. So that means that if no option is provided, then it would be equivalent to uh, the options C, L, and W, or the number of bytes, lines, and words. Okay, so this is the expected output. As you can see, there is no option passed, only a file name, and then it outputs this should be the number of lines, the number of words, and then the number of bytes. Okay, so let's go back to our code, and if you notice, I did a bit some organizing here. Okay, so first up, I've added this if else statement, so that first off, for the if, this would run the individual options. Okay, and then within the if, we have this switch statement. So instead of doing the if else for each of the individual options, I've now moved to a switch statement, and then we can just specify each of the individual options by this case line. Okay, case statement. And now within each of these case, I've also moved those actual code into their own methods. So in this case, for the uh, showing the number of bytes, it would be placed in this get number of bytes method. If we look at this get number of bytes, it's just the same code that we did earlier, only in its own method. And so for the rest of the other functions or methods, so get number of lines, get number of words, and get number of characters in their own individual methods. And so with this one, it's now much easier to reuse uh, these methods throughout the rest of the code. So this would come in handy when we do the default option, which is what we are doing for step 5. So we focus this on this else statement here. So basically, we can just call the each individual method. So if we will output the number of lines, the number of words, and then the number of bytes. So they're separated by this tab space here, so that we have a much better uh, output. And then we place the file name at the end of it. Okay, so if we try to run this one, we should hopefully get the same result. Okay, so we have here now, if we go back here to the uh, challenge, so we now have 7145 and 7864 and 342190. So this would be the number of line, the number of words, and then the number of bytes. Okay, so we have matched exactly the same output or result. Okay, so this would be for step 5. Nice. Okay, so I did a bit some experimenting here. So I thought if that I would try reading the file once, since each of these individual methods, they all read the files. Okay, so they kept reading the file just to return the desired value or count. Okay, if you can see here, we have read all text here again, and here again, read all lines. Okay, so let's try this one out. Let's comment out this one for and focus on this get default values method. So inside here, I read the or I'll read the file just once as a byte or byte array, and then from there I'd get the number of lines, words, and uh, file as count of total number of bytes. So in this case, first I have to convert to uh, into a string the number, I mean the file, or in bytes, in byte array, so that I can do the remaining count. So that would be the number of lines here. So we split it by a new line, delimiting character or backslash n. And then for the number of words, I did the same thing here. So the same thing that we did for the get number of words here initially, all right, from this method. And then get that as a number of words, get the length of that, all right. And so then we display it to our console. We just concatenate the values for the number of lines, words, and then the total number of bytes. Again, separated by tabs. Okay, it's also the file name at the end, right? So now let's try running this one and see if we have the exact same result. Okay, let's go back here, and yeah, as you can see, for the number of, what's this one, the number of lines. So for the number of lines, I'm a bit off by more than one. So 7145, I have 7146. But for the rest, like for the number of words, I'd match exactly. So 58164 for the number of words, and then the total bytes would be 342190. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened or what is happening with this number of lines. Is it number of lines? Yes, with number of lines that not matching up. So I have more than one as compared to the expected results. So I'm not quite sure what is happening here, but I hope uh, any one of you can shed a light on this one. I might have missed something, so let me know in the comments if there's something that we could do better to make this match exactly for step 5. And yeah, just let me know, right? So this would be my uh, little bit of experimentation for step 5. All right, and on to the final step. Okay, so the final step would be to read from standard input if no file name is specified. So what does it mean? So we have here the expected output. So we have this command cat, and then you pass in the text file or the file, and then we have this vertical line, and then our program, and then the option, and then it outputs the I guess this would be the number of lines. Is that the number of lines? Yes, that would be the number of lines for the dash L option. Okay, so this one, it took me quite some time to actually do this one since I'm not quite familiar with this kind of command. It turns out that this cat command is a Unix command line uh, program. Okay, so it would allow you to concatenate files or output files in the console. So far, that's what I've found with this one, and it turns out it's available only on Linux. But in my case, since I'm running on Windows, I don't have this one. But there is an option for us to do this one. First, we just need to have this Windows subsystem for Linux installed on our machine, on my Windows machine, and then we should be good to go, right? So basically, what this line here or command says that uh, cat test, the result of this would be piped to our program, and then our program will do the rest of its expected uh, behavior, which is to read lines, words, and bytes of a file. Okay, let's head back to our code. So there's a lot going on with this one since, yeah, it's my first time to encounter this one. So first problem I had is how do I read from that external program, which is the cat command. So turns out I found this one on Stack Overflow. So it says here that you can actually read from console.read or read line. Okay, Here's an example here. So it keeps reading from the console. This would be equivalent to reading from a keyboard or the user input. Okay, so that's what I did, but somehow that still doesn't quite satisfy uh, our requirements, since if you do that, if you run the program, only this one with this kind of code, then you'd get it would wait for nothing, since it is expecting a input from the user or from the keyboard. All right, now I had to find a way to know if the input would come from somewhere else, not from the keyboard, or some input stream, or basically from the cat command. Okay, and then looking through the rest of the thread, I found uh, this one. Okay, so here you have this property of the console is input redirected, and so I used that here in our code. So now in our first if statement, the if section, I check if is input redirected. So I assume that it comes from uh, some other input stream, like coming from the cat command. Okay, from there on, now we can start reading the data that is being fed through to our program. So in this case, each of the characters that will be coming in will be passed in and be read by this console.read, which in return, that data is being read as an integer. All right, and so that data we'll need to have to store it in our program, and then I've added this variable to store a list of bytes, which later on we'll use later. So anyways, from there, after reading the character, then we'll have to add it to our byte variable, but we'll have to uh, map it as a byte. Okay, since an integer, a byte is just a shorter integer. Okay, so we read that as bytes, and then once everything is read, then we move to this method wc from console input, which is actually basically just the rest of the code wherein we determine uh, what needs to be done. Okay, what count of numbers is being shown. Okay, so here, since we have received all of the bytes, then we'll need to convert it into a string. So in that case, I've used this uh, method from the system.text file, I mean class, to get a string. It receives a byte array. So since we are using a list of bytes, then we'll just need to convert it to an array. And then from there on, we'll be able to get the string. So we have here full string variable stored. And then from there on, we continue to the rest of the program, which is if uh, there is no option being passed, which means that the arguments are uh, 0, there are no options being passed, then we do the default behavior, which is to uh, show the number of lines, words, and total number of bytes. Okay, and then if there was an option that is being passed, then we do the individual options. Okay, so we write the number of counts depending on the option that is being passed, much like the same way that it is being run from directly. Okay, so now if we try to run this one, so as you can see, we have 314290. That's because if we go back to our debug option, we have passed a dash c, okay, the total number of bytes. So it comes here. So how do we actually test this one out? Like we do from here, like we actually do this kind of execute this kind of code in the command line. So to do that, first we'll need to publish this one as a standalone executable program. Okay, so I did that. I right click on our project and then select this publish option, and then from here we'll just publish to a folder. So as you can see, we have several options that we need to do here. So if we show all settings, so we have here release, type, and then target framework. Now, one thing we have to take note of here is that we have to set it as self-contained, okay? And then the target runtime would be Windows x86. That would be fine. And then from this file publish options, we'll have to check the produce single file, okay? So that we have only a single file that is being generated when this program is getting published. Okay, we click save and then we click publish. So it will go through the compilation process and build and create the executable from our code. Okay, now that's done. It's very quick. Let's just click on this navigate here button, and then we'll be uh, directed to the folder that it has generated the executable. Okay, so they have this one now. So what's we're missing here is the test file. So to do that, we'll just copy this one, copy, then paste it here. Okay, so now we have our test file. So after that, we have that. Now we can go to the console. Now to do that here, we'll have to open the PowerShell. So I have here the developer PowerShell. Sorry if my tongue is twisting. So I've already tried it out initially. So we can actually execute the one here in the challenge. So if we do the cat test, the text, then we do a pipe. And then for our code, since we'll have to deal with the Windows environment stuff, I'm not really good into that, but just do dot backslash and then the name of our program, which is in this case is the wctool.exe, and then we pass the option, okay, and then we hit enter. Then we should be able to get the count. So in this line, the number of lines. All right, so we have almost the same result as the one expected here. Again, I'm a bit off by more than one, but I'm not quite sure how or why. So again, we can do some of the other expected behavior. If we don't pass any option, then we should be getting the default behavior of getting the number of lines, words, and then bytes. Okay, so we have the same, yeah, same results also. Okay, so now our program is like self-contained. You can run it on individually or on its own. Okay, along with some other uh, external programs that gets piped from it to it. Yeah. So let's actually try running this one. WC tool, we pass the option, that's dash L, and then the file name, test.txt. Oh, we have an error. Maybe we can do that. Not quite if proficient with PowerShell. Sorry. Maybe you can run it in a different this one, the command prompt. Let's try. Let's move to that directory. Okay. Let's go to here. Let's go to that directory. How do we copy? Okay. Let's just do this. Let's go to WC tool. Let's go to bin. Let's go to release. Okay, let's go to net 80. And then let's go to publish. Let's see if we have the correct. Okay. Now we have, let's go to win-886 x86. Sorry. And then we're now here, then WC tool, then we can execute. Okay, dash L option test.txt. Okay, now we have the same result. As if, yeah, we're running the code from Visual Studio itself, right? Let's try again. Number of words. Yep. same result. We have no option. Again, we do get the same result. Nice. So I guess that wraps up our final step for this one. So yeah, it's been quite uh, interesting one to do this one challenge. So I hope I get to do the rest of the other challenges here. So yeah, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you'll get updated to our latest videos. And yeah, hope to see you soon, everyone. So thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.